I'm a big fan of Outkast. That's like my favorite. It's probably the only rap that I still listen to on a daily basis, to be honest. It's super experimental. That's why it's inspiring to me. I like any kind of music that's experimental or, sort of all over the place.
So does he have the name Ghost Mane because he has a mane of hair and he's a ghost with a horse-like mane of hair? Is that what it is?
I think as a good starting point, the Kabbalion is probably the best place to start with like Hermeticism and.
I thought he said Kabbalah at first, but then it's the Kabbalion. I haven't read that book, but it's obviously something in the occult.
The law of attraction and stuff like that, because the law of attraction is just sort of a modern term for mental transmutation, which is ancient.
Mental transmutation. I'm not fully up to date on the definition of transmutation, but that's like one thing turning into a different substance. No, that's it's not transubstantiation, which is performed when they do the sacraments, when you take communion, but let me just look that up here. Transmutation. Change into another nature, another substance, another form or condition. So your mind is becoming a different substance? Your mental processes are becoming something different? This is still kind of a little mysterious. Maybe that's the point. But obviously law of attraction is something I've discussed before. And this young artist, Ghostmane, I haven't listened to his music. This video randomly came across me and I decided to watch it. He's born in 1991, only 5 years after me. I originally thought he was at least 10 years younger than me. I just noticed that he was mentioning the law of attraction there. The corporations are pushing law of attraction for their own ends. I'm not trying to come down on this guy too hard, although I'm going to make fun of him a little bit. I have more sympathy for him than I do for someone like Koi Fresco, Vishuddha Das, who does remind me of Ghostmane in some ways. But just in terms of their appearance, that they're all tatted up, they have long hair, they're into ancient sort of mystic, Gnostic ideas. Early 20s to mid 20s white guys, same body type, but his hair is kind of a little girlish. But then his voice is more masculine than Koi's voice. If you listen to Koi's voice,
to maybe try this with me if you feel drawn to it. I'm just completely taking apart all of the self-doubt, the inner turmoils.
He definitely sounds pretty gay, but this guy at least sounds more masculine, so at least I'll give him that.
Like thoughts become things, and you're a product, and your life is a product of the thoughts that you put out there.
Your thoughts become things. Your life is a product of the thoughts you put out there. Yeah, that's standard law of attraction philosophy. You can use that to your benefit, but it does remain pretty vague because neither of us can prove in the end what's the source of your life changing. You could think it's your thoughts, but are you the center of the universe? Obviously I would say there has to be a higher power responsible for that, but the focus is on you. That's the interesting thing. The focus is on the self, the hope, the promise that you can live the dream, like you can live this wonderful life on earth. So don't be thinking about the fact that the world is fallen. Don't be thinking about that you need to call on a higher power. It's all up to you alone. And that, to me, is an empty and ultimately unsatisfying worldview. But I think when people are young, they get introduced to all this New Age stuff, and then it seems so edgy to them, and it seems so, and they know, it's ancient stuff, but it seems like, most people haven't been looking into this. Our generation is going to be able to change the world. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen. And this philosophy it gets tried out every generation. Like, it's been going on for a while now. At least in our modern times, since the Theosophical Society was doing its seances back in the 19th century.
And then, if you want to get into Crowley, obviously the Book of the Law.
From what I get, Crowley dabbled in dark things. I don't necessarily believe that there's the dark occult and that, but I mean, he definitely did some pretty shady dark things, and I guess he was leading kind of a degenerate lifestyle with having these crazy parties and orgies and stuff. I mean, you could see how this sort of gets into Satanism, and Ghostmane probably doesn't believe in Satan, so who cares?
The Book of Lies.
The Book of Lies. This is all very interesting stuff, so I'm a bit out of my league here, so you can make fun of me. Hey, you don't know what you're talking about, but I'm just poking fun of these books. Like the Book of Lies is, okay, that doesn't sound very nice. Is that like society has lied to you? So you got to know the truth? And then is this sun, is that like Lucifer? Because he's shining the light? And then we can be enlightened? Okay, so you have a lot of tattoos, but then he put them in areas where he cannot cover them up. He purposely put it on his throat, got another one scrawled across his forehead. Man, like, why would you do that? I mean, it's one thing if you have tattoos that can be covered up, and it just looks like crap. Like, it looks like your skin is messed up because from our distance, and the resolution of the screen isn't that good. I mean, we can't even make out the detail. It just looks like a blob of splotched ink. It makes you look dirty. And from time to time, I'm interested in analyzing people who are very superficial and who also talk about spirituality. This guy's a rapper, so I'm not saying he's all about that.
But other than that, yes, space and astrophysics I'm hugely passionate about. Recently I read the Astrophysics for People in a Hurry with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay, well, I don't know this book, but I am familiar with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he's kind of a loudmouth. He's probably a well-educated guy and knows a lot of stuff, but Neil deGrasse Tyson is very much status quo, establishment. But you're not really going to be told the truth from Neil deGrasse Tyson, because he's a materialist, an atheist.
That's a great, like, sort of all-encapsulating. It goes into like a history of the universe from the Big Bang to the present, and then sort of everything down to the chemical makeup of the universe and stuff like that. Just
oh man, he tatted up the digits on his fingers too. So it looks like you got bruised. It looks like you got, like, someone took a hammer in the alley and like smashed your hands up. I don't want to come down on this guy too hard because he doesn't come across as too full of himself. It just looks like he doesn't really know. And who can excuse a young guy for that? You know, he gets drawn into the same sort of things that many young people get drawn into. So the fact that he's an artist does not mean that this guy has any more reason to be believed than I do, than you do, than any of us.
I don't think science and religion necessarily need to be separate because they complement each other.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It wasn't separate for the ancient Egyptians. I don't agree with everything about the ancient Egyptians. Like, their temples were blendings of science and art and religion, all that stuff. It's never really been separate. We just have the illusion that science and spirituality are separate. But it's just like church and state can't ever really be separate. That's just an illusion we like to maintain. You can't act in the world without having some fundamental beliefs, some fundamental principles, fundamental axioms. That goes for politicians and spiritual figures as well. Now, obviously, a lot of politicians are corrupt, but we still all operate by some fundamental principles.
You know, you find yourself subconsciously taking steps to bring yourself there. I think that's really what it is when you break it down, is the law of attraction is sort of just a way to say that if you stay mentally focused on something, your subconscious is going to make you take the steps to make that happen, right? As long as you don't lose sight of your goal.
Yeah, sure. That's fair enough. We're not always 100% in control. So sometimes you may try to focus on something and you will do a very good job of maintaining that in focus for a long time. And yet you still won't get it sometimes. And then you have to think, well, is there a deeper reason why I'm not getting this thing at this time in my life? And that is what this philosophy cannot get into. They don't go that deeper level to really think about that. They still like to believe that you can always kind of live the life you want if you focus enough. And yes, that's an important thing. We can bring good opportunities into our life, of course. But don't ever think that you can control everything in life.
We start to vibrate at a much higher level and transcend the physical plane, and we just move on to the spiritual plane.
Well, this is all very interesting, but we don't really know. This is sort of Hindu stuff or whatever, shamanic stuff, psychedelic. We have these spiritual bodies, and this is what people in astral projection talk about, like leaving their bodies and stuff. But it's also kind of a murky, a shadowy world where it seems, from what I understand, that there's a lot of entities there trying to pull you out of your body. These might be demons, can't say for sure, but some of them are not friendly. A lot of people end up having very terrifying experiences. I mean, I've been contacted by people who have said these things to me. I haven't experienced it myself, but this is some people do report this. It always starts out like, oh, it's this cool thing, this amazing thing you're doing. Time goes on. Some of these people are going to have really messed up experiences.
Whether or not, your actions or what you did in the physical plane has any bearing on where you live in that plane, I don't know. I'd like to think so.
Yeah, you'd better hope it has an effect, because then if there's no effect, then how can you speak of there being any good or bad, and therefore any right or wrong, any real purpose to existence? It's not all relativistic, it's not all meaningless, because actions do have consequences.
I think I believe in reincarnation and that souls have, an age, stuff like that.
I'm not sure. I used to believe in reincarnation. I don't know anymore now. I don't know because I don't know enough about Christian philosophy to say what exactly happens to the soul in terms of going to hell or heaven. Because there's heaven or hell before the resurrection. They say that we're all going to be resurrected in our earthly bodies that we have right now, and we will have new bodies in the presence of Jesus. I'm not sure how that goes with the reincarnation stuff, that it's like this endless Hindu cycle of going around, and there's different ages, but the soul migrates to different bodies and maybe on different planets, and it's all very fantastic, but we don't really know. But the point is, the soul doesn't go away when you die, and that's one thing we can agree on. I mean, at least it doesn't go away right away. It might not last forever.
You could tell. I mean, there's the term "old soul" is real. There's people that are much older than me that still. It seems like they live like kids, because they haven't learned enough lessons or whatever like that.
Yeah, old souls. This is something that a lot of people mention. It boosts your ego to think that you're an old soul. I don't know if this is something that is a deception or if it's something validly true. All I know is that, yes, some people have more of a different vibe than other people.
I don't like to put things in super neat categories like reincarnation or Buddhism or, specific religion. I just like to take bits and pieces of what seems to make sense to me and kind of make it part of my own beliefs,
That's a good, well-said summary of a lot of young people, what he just said there, and to an extent myself as well, when I was younger. What is your system? What is your basis for determining how you get truth?
I just like to take bits and pieces of what seems to kind of make it part of my own beliefs,
That's not a very good foundation of truth. It's just a little bit from this and a little bit from that. I made it work for me. Then that's a pretty cheap notion of truth, because the ultimate truth must be beyond you, and it doesn't necessarily care what you think of it. The ultimate truth transcends beyond you. You live by the standards of ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is never going to be subject to you, and you or I will probably never be able to access even a small percentage of ultimate truth. Not that ultimate truth can be divided into percentages. I'm just trying to give you an analogy.
I can believe something, but I could meet someone tomorrow that teaches me something and completely switches my belief around. I think it's important to live that way, just super open-minded, yeah.
My beliefs on this channel have continued to change. I mean, it's true, you got to keep an open mind, but then how do you maintain principles? So that's something we all must consider. How do you live life with, you must have some fundamental principles that you believe that make you who you are, that inform your action, but you don't want to go through life closed off with a rigid mindset, tunnel vision. You're not willing to re-examine things, rethink things. I guess if you have faith and if you have a deep intuitive sense, in that sense, you probably never change. None of us are really, I don't think intuitively on that level of the soul, any of us are really much different at the end of our lives than we are when we're born.
Does anime count? Oh, probably Griffith. Yeah, from Berserk.
Who are they talking about? Griffith from Berserk? No idea what that is.
He's an excellent example of like a protagonist who isn't necessarily the good guy, so to speak, but he, stands for what's positive in the series, I guess. But then he becomes taken over by power.
They're talking about anime now. Maybe this is a sign it's time for me to end this video. Anime was popular in my generation too. I'm born in '86. But for this guy, I can see that anime is like even more popular now. If some rapper is talking about anime, and then he's talking about some supposedly male protagonist, this is supposedly a man? Oh my goodness. What is wrong with anime? If I saw this illustration, I would just assume that that's like a woman. Hasta luego, amigos.